Publish early and often. This is something that we hear often from different peers or people who are just starting in research. The senior academics always give them the suggestion to publish early and often. However, is it just the number of publications, or is it also how many times your publications are cited that matters? So in this video, I'll be breaking down different tips and strategies on how you can improve your citation rates for the papers that you're publishing. I'll give you some suggestions, but we will also have some experts to talk about what are different strategies that they adopt in order to increase their citations. Video coming up. Faizan here from Research Beast. On this channel, I share different tips and tricks for researchers, different motivational talks, and I also talk to experts about the research methods or anything related to research. So if you're interested in content like this, please consider subscribing to the channel. So we always hear that the number of publications are important. How many papers have you published and stuff like this. Over the years, when people apply for jobs or any funding or any scholarships, they're always asked like, what is the number of publications? How many papers have you published? How many papers have you written so far? How many papers do you have in the pipeline? Stuff like this. However, recently we are seeing more and more organizations, more and more schools are asking people about how many times their papers are cited, which is basically what's the impact of the research. So it's not only what you have published so far, but what is the impact of that research. So not only in academia, but also in your personal life. Like recently, I remember that I applied for permanent residence in the US as an outstanding researcher, and I was required to submit a citation report for my research, the research that I've done. What is the impact of this research? How many people have cited it? Where do they cite that work? So of course, citations are not just a number, but it's also importance of your work. It's impact of your work in your professional circles as well as in your personal circles. So as I said, applying into graduate programs, applying for funding, for research funding, for scholarships, applying for jobs, in fact, applying for promotions, all these different applications are now not looking only at how many papers have you published, but also at how many times those papers that you have published are cited. Where have those papers been cited and stuff like this. So in today's video, I'm going to go through very quickly 10 different tips that I have used by myself, but also you can use in order to increase your citations. But also in the later part of this video, I will have a very good friend of mine, Dr. Jihan Chobanoglu, who is going to talk to 3 other experts, people who are highly cited in their disciplines, to talk about what do they do in order to be highly cited researchers in their fields, from the topic selection to the journal selection to co-author selection and stuff like this. So please stay tuned, and we will present this very interesting webinar. So before I get into this webinar, I just want to tell you 10 different tips or 10 simple things that you can do in order to increase your citations. Number 1, self-citation. Now I know that this is a very interesting topic. Some people think that self-citation is not important, but I think whenever your work is relevant, you can cite your own work. Of course, it has to be done with a proper balance. You don't have to cite 10, 15, 20 of your papers, but just those papers that are very relevant to your work. For example, I recently did a review paper on PLS in hospitality and research, and not only other people, but I also sometimes use that paper as a reference to using PLS in my studies or wherever that particular paper is relevant. Number 2, you should know that there's more and more research being published, more and more research being available online. So the choice of keywords is extremely important. Now, most of the times what people do is that they put just the main words from their title or abstract as keywords. I think authors need to be very strategic whenever it comes to selection of keywords, because keywords are used by search engines in order to select or to show the results on the first or second page. Now, the more your paper or your research shows up in the first 20 or 30 search results, the more you have a chance to get cited. So choosing the right keyword also has a very a very interesting impact on how many times your papers are cited. Number three, repeatedly use the keywords. So if you have selected some keywords, make sure that you are using those keywords in the title, in the abstract, in the aim of your study, because most of the times you know that papers that are published through some publishers are not open access. However, abstract, title and the keywords are open access. So Google crawler or any other search engine crawlers it's very easy for them to crawl and pick up those keywords. So whenever you are selecting keywords, make sure you are using them repeatedly. Number four, make sure that your name is very consistent across different papers that you are publishing. Now, sometimes people change their name because of getting married or any other situation in their life. The names change, and because of that, it's very difficult for others to track your paper. So make sure that your name is consistently used across different type of papers that you are publishing. 5, make sure that your paper is easily accessible to people. Now, I know that there are issues with the copyright and things, but most of the publishers allow the authors to go ahead and make their pre-accepted version of the paper available to people on websites like ResearchGate or academia, or even your personal pages or your university databases. So make sure when your paper is accepted, you are providing some sort of version of that paper available, so that people who do not have access to the publishers can have access to the paper, they can read it and they can cite it. 6 is to make sure that you socialize. Make sure you are available on social media or any other channels. Make sure that you are attending different type of events at your university to talk about your research, because unless you don't take ownership of your research, talk about it, other people won't. So the more you talk about your research at social media, on social media pages, or on your university, during your university events, you'll have more and more awareness about your paper, and people are going to cite that paper in the future. Number 7 is similar to point number 6, and that is make sure you present your paper at conferences. So whenever you have done some sort of research work, make sure the initial version of that work is submitted to a conference. You should present it at a conference. You should also share your results at conferences, so that people can listen to you, people can give you active feedback on your work, and also reach out to you for different type of collaborations. People who are interested in similar research can reach out to you and work with you on that type of research in the future. We often talk about proofreading and editing the manuscript, but what we forget is also to double check our data. Now, most of the research these days is heavily depending on the data that we have and the analysis that we have for the data. So recommended to proofread your paper or to edit your paper. It's also important that you check and recheck the data analysis part of your manuscript. Make sure that the information that you are providing is correct. Otherwise, your citations will drop altogether, and the reason for that would be that people would not trust the research that you are conducting. Number 9 is to make sure that you select the right journal to publish your work. Now, remember that most of the people who cite your work are the researchers following your work, right? So let's say if you publish something in 2016, it's highly possible that in 2016, later in 2016, 17 or 18, people are going to read that work, use it in their research and cite it. So most of the times, I as an assistant professor or as a supervisor recommend my students to go and read the top tier journals. Like, I have never seen somebody asking their students to go and read the low level or really bad journals. So most of the times we recommend people to go and read the top tier journals, or to read the journals with higher rankings. So the more people go and read those journals, the more they have a possibility to cite the papers published in those journals. So whenever it comes for you to select the journal to publish your work in, make sure you are selecting the right journal. I recently did a video on how do you select the right journal for your research. I'll put it up somewhere, here, there, wherever, in a card. Make sure you click on it. Also watch that video that shows very interesting methods to find the right journal for your research. Point number 10, which may not be applicable to many people, but I would highly recommend people who just finished their PhD to publish some sort of a review paper. Now, normally review papers are very heavy, they take a lot of effort, but they also garner a lot of citations, because what you are doing in a review paper is you pick up one topic and then you review all the work that is done around that topic. So anybody who has to read about this topic would most probably read your work and cite it. Now again, review papers are not very easy to do, because most of the review papers that we have these days are focusing on what has been done before about a certain topic. However, if you want to get more citations, what you need to do is work more on the future research agenda in the review paper. Not only to provide readers with what have been done on that area before, but also about what should they do in the future about that area. That is where you get most of the citations. Now, these are just simple tips and tricks that I normally apply in order to get more citations. However, you can pick up any of them in your career to increase your citations. Now, please don't go anywhere, because right after this, I have my very good friend Dr. Jihan Chobanoglu, who is going to be talking to 3 experts about how do we increase citations, coming up next. Alright guys, so if you are getting some value from this video, please make sure that you subscribe to the channel. Also click on the notification icon so that you are aware of whenever the new video is uploaded on this channel.
Good morning from Denton, Texas. Good morning to Dallas. Good morning to all around the world. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, depending upon where you are. You know, this is so amazing because our 3 panelists here and myself as the moderator, we are all 3 different countries. Bing is in Chicago, Marco is in Berlin, and Dimitros normally is in the UK, but right now you are in Greece or Rome?
I'm in Rhodes in Greece.
You're Rhodes in Greece, so perfect. How to get high citations for your research papers webinar. Before we start, I would, but a little bit about myself, professor at University of South Florida. I also president of Association of North America Higher Education International, doing research, edit several journals. I actually serve as the editor for Journal of Hospital Tourism Technology, and also serve as the associate editor for Tourism Review, which Dimitros is the editor-in-chief, which is an SSCI journal. We have 3 wonderful panelists, and Laura will be able to see it. Okay, gentlemen, my first question, and I'm going to start with Dr. Bing here. Please, and of course, background about yourself and your research area. Let's start with you, please.
Okay, so my name is Bing Liu, and I'm a professor of computer science at the University of Illinois at Chicago. Before joining the University of Illinois Chicago, I was in National University of Singapore. I also was a faculty there. So my area of research is basically a few, which is mostly related to the data mining, natural language processing, and machine learning. So more specifically, I've been doing sentiment analysis, and which is quite related to tourism, to the marketing, all this type of thing. But of course, we did it mostly from the natural language processing point of view, and also in terms of computational linguistics. So my recent interest also includes lifelong machine learning and open world learning. So this is just different type of learning to get the computer to learn continuously instead of learning with one data set and then the process of the data set, build a model, and then use it. So we want to make the computer more intelligent, then they can learn and accumulate the knowledge along the way. And when you solve the future problems, it becomes much easier. So that's basically my background. Of course, I also did quite a few other things, but these are the things I'm currently interested in.
You are next now. Please tell about your background and research.
Okay, my name is Dimitros Bouchalis. I'm the head of the Department of Tourism and Hospitality in Bournemouth University, and I've been working on tourism and technology, really strategic marketing based on technology for tourism and hospitality for the last 30 years. And I've done quite a lot of work on e-tourism, and now increasingly I'm working on smart tourism and real-time tourism.
Wonderful, thank you. Marco? Marco?
Yeah, my name is Marco at the Otto van Guericke University. It was pretty close, yeah. I'm also working in Monash in Malaysia. But my research actually is more on the method side. So I'm one of the researchers working heavily in structure equation modeling, particularly partially square structure equation modeling. And we started with, more groundwork relating to model development and with how to evaluate models. And now we're actually developing new algorithms to handle specific problems. Another field of mine is actually consumer research. So I'm dealing with anomalies in consumer choice behavior, and most recently in sensory marketing, scent effect, for example, on consumer behavior.
Wonderful. So you are all invited here because you are highly accomplished researchers. One way of measuring success in academia, as you all know, is the number of citations that you get. Recently, I sent the invitation of this webinar panel into TriNet Tourism Network listserv. It created a heated debate there. A lot of people were discussing if citations are really the true measures of success or not. So what I would like to ask you as next question is that you are all, Marco, about 30,000 citations, Bohalis, you same, and Bing, you have more than 50,000, at least that's based on the Google citations that I looked. So my question to you, all of you, did you plan to be highly cited when you started your research? In other words, when you started your research in your early years, did you know that, you know what, I should pick this topic over this topic, or I should publish here instead of here to be highly cited? If yes, how? And if not, if there is a need to plan for this, is this something to be planned? And whoever wants to field first, please go ahead.
I can start if you like.
Please.
When you start doing your research, you're being a PhD student and all the rest of it, you just hope that you're going to publish somewhere and someone is going to accept your paper and get published. You have no idea what citations are. And I'm probably the oldest of the group, so at that time, those things were not really important. I was always planning to do good research that had relevant and impact. Impact to society, not necessarily impact the way we are managing in academia. But nobody ever had mentioned citations or any of these games that we play recently. Until sometime in 2003 or 2004, when Professor Mike Riley was doing my assessment at the university. And I was a senior lecturer, I think, at the time, and he said to me, you've got a following, you've got an audience, and people are listening to you and they are quoting you. And I said, why is that important? Because he said, it means that what you say has got relevance. And what people are doing is they are following what you're saying, and also they're using your work in their work. And that's the first epiphany moment that said, okay, this is something good. I never planned for it, but it happened. But because of several reasons, I think, why it happened, but people were following what I was doing and they were using it in their work.
Wonderful. Bing, how about you? Did you plan?
Okay, so for myself, I mean, same sort of thing as Demetrius. I mean, at the beginning, of course, you just try to get your paper accepted. You don't really think that much when you start with the PhD students. And also after my PhD, I wasn't really planning to be an academic, be a professor. I went to work in the industry for a couple of years, and then I didn't like the environment, and then I joined the sort of National University of Singapore and became a research fellow. So at that time, I started to do research. And of course, after some transition, and then I sort of start to do serious research. At that time, of course, never thought about too much about citation, but definitely I thought about, I need to do something important, something impactful. So I could say yes. I mean, when you think about doing something impactful, obviously there will come with some citations. So then you have to carefully choose the topic which is interesting, which is novel, and also probably will be influential. So that's basically my experience. So I've been doing sort of every time I've been trying to do something important, right? That's it.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you. Marco, how about you? What is your thought?
It's kind of similar. Obviously, I'm in a bit different system than you are. We have a very narrow pyramid in terms of becoming a faculty member. It's extremely difficult because we don't have associate and assistant professors. Well, why I'm saying that is the only goal function that you have as a postdoc researcher is actually publishing in top tier journals. And so you actually don't even have time to consider aspects such as citations. But that actually changed in the last couple of years. Also in our goal functions recently, we consider this more strongly. Also because me, as being part of panels that have to decide about promotions and so on, citations have become one ingredient. I'm not saying it's like super important, but it is one aspect that leads to differentiation, because what we see is candidates are performing at very similar levels in terms of research output these days. Very strong, yeah, also third-party funding, very strong. But then the citations are actually a differentiating factor. And that actually led us, like my entire research team, also to consider this more strongly. I'm not saying focusing on it totally, but like considering it in the way we write our papers, and especially in the way we present the research findings and summarize them.
Wonderful. I'm just curious, are citations acknowledged in your institutions? Like, do they really care that, for example, are you treated better or you get promotion easier if you have more citations? In other words, do you favor, let's say, if you serve in a committee as an external reviewer or internal reviewer, I don't know, different universities, different systems, but if a professor or researcher has more citations, do you favor that person better than the ones that doesn't?
Yes. Yeah, I would say yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Same here.
Dimitrios, for you?
Well, I don't think that my institution is following that very closely, but when we are looking for promotions, when we are looking for evaluations, it's something that we are looking at. And also I'm serving on committees around the world, 30, 40 universities, and I'm asked whether someone should be promoted to professor. If someone has got a few publications that nobody has read, nobody has actually cited, you're kind of thinking, what is the impact of this person, you know? If someone, so yes, I think everybody is using them one way or another. I think some people are using them mechanistically, some people are using them more strategically. But one of the things that's really critical to mention here is that citations depends on your subjects. So if you do a methodology subject, different people who are doing research and they're using the methodology they're using. My area would say strategic marketing, technology, for tourism, quite a lot. It's quite broad area. I know colleagues on forecasting. The forecasters is a small group of 150 people, 200 people. And they're publishing a small, so there's some subjects that there's a small number of colleagues working on that area, and therefore you wouldn't expect to find the same number of citations because simply the volume is smaller.
Right. That's
so
right.
It depends on the subject as well.
Which leads to my next question. Maybe, Bing, we can start with you. Do you believe that high citations means high quality? So yes, somebody has high citations, but does it automatically mean high, or in other words, how do you define quality in academic research?
So as Dimitri says, I mean, to some extent, I agree, sort of high citation means high, I don't know what is the quality, but I would probably say high impact, high influence. So quality is hard to say because how quality could be the quality of the paper, maybe, you know, when you go to the conferences, you get a best paper award. That might be a good, high quality paper, but they may not have a huge influence afterwards. So I would say it's probably more of influence and impact. So I definitely agree with that. Of course, we need to consider the topics and the areas. So some of this area are smaller, some of the areas are bigger. And if you work in the bigger area, you obviously get better, sort of more citations. So I think citation is also somewhat that we should consider to be an objective measure. And I sometimes don't really like people try to evaluate things subjectively, and they think this is good, but you need to have some kind of objective measure of sort of research output, research sort of influence, research impact. So from my experience, it's quite obvious because I'm basically known for three areas of my work, and then those obviously they get high citations, and one of them will get a lot more citations, mainly because I think the area is sort of is big, and also I worked very early, but I also work on some other areas which is smaller, which is obviously the researcher is more sort of machine learning thing, which is more methodological type of thing, and but the number of people who are interested in that thing is a lot smaller, and so obviously the number of research and the number of citation will get is will be smaller. Right. So overall, I think it's good. I mean, I think it's a nice way of measuring people in some objective and quantitative way, which is always better than people say you're good. I mean, it's just subjective. Yeah.
Right. Wonderful. Yeah. Marco, how about you? High citations means high quality or not?
Yeah, kind of, yes. Yeah, in a specific way. I mean, I would also rather use the word impact. But the thing with these metrics is once you have a metric out, then people tend to just rank candidates based on citation count, saying, okay, this one's got like 30,000 and this one's got 31,000. And I think this is not where the citation metric does not work really well. So differentiating candidates that are very close to each other, I don't think that's really what these metrics are designed for. But what they actually help us is shedding light on the two tails of the distribution. So they actually help differentiating very successful and impactful researchers from those that are not really impactful. But even there, you have to be cautious. I mean, see, you can write a paper that inspires just one other researcher who then comes up with a marvelous idea that's changing the world. So the way you are actually affecting people is not measured by these metrics. So that's why I think one has to be really careful. And also, I mean, the impact of citations of research, well, if you look at least my citation counts, the most come from a textbook. And obviously, this textbook is grounded in years of research, true. But at the end, it's textbooks that get way more citations than typical research papers.
Right. Perfect. Dimitrios, how about you? Dimitrios.
Yeah, I think there is an element of quality. If some of my top paper has got thousands of citations, and there is reasons for that. People have used it and they've built on it. A lot of people don't know that this was based on my master's dissertation, and that was the reality, because at that time it was fresh, it was new, it was really interesting, and it has gone for a long period of time. I've seen excellent work that has never been cited and didn't have an impact. And I've seen very bad work that is cited quite often. So I'm a little bit reluctant to bring citations and quality label together. Having said that, when you see something that has got 4,000 citations, there must be something good about it, right? And it has got an impact. Marco was saying, when you it's not about between 30,000 and 31,000. That's not meaningful. But when you see something that, you know, that has been out there for 10 years and it has only got, I don't know, 200 citations, that means that it's not really of that kind of level that will make an impact. It's not going to influence society. And if it doesn't influence society, that's probably not that great.
Right, right. Perfect. That's great. You know, my colleague Faizan Ali, I know Dimitris Marco, you know Faizan, is a young researcher. He told me he's doing something interesting. I think it's strategic importance for young researchers, maybe not for so much senior, but he's actually checking. He gets a alert from Google Citations when somebody cited his paper. He goes and checks how they cited his paper. Is it meaningful or how? So that he himself is actually doing a kind of like a self-quality check on those citations, because you're right. Somebody may have done a lousy job and people are citing that, look how terrible this research is. That is a citation, but might not be the one. Okay, we have a lot of questions.
I think it's really important before we start getting to the questions to make sure that people understand what's happening here. People don't cite you because you manage your citations. People cite you because of the clarity of the idea, because of things that you're looking on the long term, because you can make an impact, because you're doing good research.
Exactly.
The citations are coming once you've done these things. And I know that some people may try to play the game or whatever to kind of manage citations. You cannot manage citations. I don't think any of us are spending time managing citations. What we manage is doing good work and make sure that this work is well researched, and also we communicate the research. I communicate my research and say, hey, this my new paper came out, and then people are reading it.
Right. You market
and
it.
People are reading it, and if they find that useful, they use it. If they don't find that useful, they simply don't use it. So my message, because I know a lot of junior academics are following us and they're listening, is rather than spend the time to manage your citations, manage your time to do good quality work, excellent research that will have an impact.
Right.
Do not look into little corners, very small, tiny areas, but look at the big picture. And those things, normally they get picked up.
Exactly. I agree. That is great. Managing citations, I think, Dimitros, I have to tell you that there is a fact, right? When we look at the high citations in all of you, and you kind of like mentioned that, Marco, your textbook and PLS research that you're doing, methodology, everybody is doing it. And Dimitros, for you also, some of the review papers that you have done and methodology, they get a lot of citations, and it's natural, right? So somebody asked, for example, that leads me to a question from the audience. Ivan Paunovic, I don't know if I should read the names of the people who asked, but anyway, I would like to give them credit. So, for example, he's asking that, is it better, in your opinion, panelists, to publish in special issues or regular issues of journal? I assume that he's asking from the perspective of citations. Any thoughts there? Does it matter if you publish in a special issue versus a regular issue?
Well, maybe I can jump ahead. Well, at least I can now speak for the German system, yeah. From a acknowledgement perspective, a regular issue is generally preferred, at least where in my field, yeah. So this might be very field specific, because special issues typically, and I'm just saying typically, less competitive. Therefore it's generally viewed it's easier to get into special issue. But again, this is very field specific. From a citation perspective, I personally think it's better to go into a special issue, because then you're close to similar papers and you get more attention in those research fields which are actually interested in the theme of your research and in the theme of the special issue. So I think it's from a marketing communication perspective, it's better to be in the special issue than in the regular issue.
Okay, anybody else to chip in? And the same person is also asking about book chapters versus journal articles. Do they have any difference in terms of citations, in your opinion, or in your experience, I guess I should say?
Book chapters are not going to be picked up in Scopus. They are not going to be picked up in World of Science. So, we are kind of implying that everything is Google Scholar, but it's not. You know, if you really look on serious citations, you look into Web of Knowledge and you're looking to Scopus, and those book chapters will never get ranked there. So, yeah.
Dimitrios, you got a question there because you said that you are doing you're marketing your papers. Like when you have a new paper, you put it on social media, you ask people to read. If they like it, they cite it. This question is a follow-up to that. How do you specifically market your papers? What do you do for this?
Well, I don't really market my papers, but when a paper comes out, then I'm using my social media because I've got all the platforms, and I've got LinkedIn, I've got my Facebook page, my Twitter, my Instagram, my WeChat, and I say, guys, new research just came out. Look at this if you're interested, and I put it on the blog. So if you really want to play a little bit on how you do these things, is you really need to use the right keywords. So when someone is looking for particular things, it comes back to your article. The other thing is that, and we do that for Tourism Review as well, sometimes authors write very, very complicated titles on articles. That's a very long title that's really about focusing on a small village somewhere that very few people are interested on these kind of things. And this is something that I've been working on for a while. That I don't really work. I don't want to do research for the village of my mother, as I say. You know, I really like to have a much broader kind of research that people will be using much more. And then equally, when this is out, then we have the opportunity to release it to the world and say this is out, and then people are looking at it. So it's a full circle.
Right.
You pick up the topics that can make an impact, because that's what I'm interested in. You write the paper, you get it out, then you say the world that the paper has been out.
Right.
That's the circle.
Marco, you are very active on social media as well. I see that you not only share your own research, but also the researchers that use your research in the context of PLS, right? So what would you say to this question in terms of market? Is there a need for researchers to market their research? Again, maybe the goal might be getting more citations, or maybe even just dissemination, like spreading the good research that you do.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. See, academia is not much different from the rest of the economy. We're talking about attention economy and being able to get through to the customer. And kind of the customer, when you do research, are your fellow researchers and practitioners and those other stakeholders that actually engage in relevant decision-making that is being related to your area of research. So yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the biggest issue with some of my fellow researchers who just don't take that serious. I mean, it's not like you're scrapping on some doors. Yeah, I mean, it's just an invitation to look at your papers. Nobody forces anyone to look at them, and even publishers and editors have understood this. Yeah, I mean, they proactively send out emails to those that might be interested in this. And so my advice to younger researchers would be, market your papers via social media, and also proactively send it to those authors that you cited heavily and relied on in your research. I mean, I would never, ever write back, well, why are you sending me this paper? I mean, I'm thankful for research that is stimulating and exciting. And maybe I don't find it stimulating, so what? Yeah, it's worth a try.
Right.
So
your area,
not
right?
blindly sending out to everyone out there, but like targets, like as companies do, yeah, targets the customer, and yeah.
And you know your people, right? You know the other people who are doing research in that area as well. Bing, how about you? Do you market your papers? Do you do anything in this?
No, I not really. I mean, I don't use any social media, and I don't market. I don't do anything.
Yeah, because I couldn't find
So,
you. I looked for you in Facebook and other things, but I couldn't find you.
no, I'm not on Facebook and not on Twitter. I registered on the Facebook once. That was because I need to write a reference letter for my students who was applying for a fellowship on in the Facebook's research, some sort of program. No, I don't really do anything. I think in computer science, is not so many people doing it. There are a few, but very few, yeah.
I see. Okay. Now another question came. Again, many questions. Hopefully we'll have enough time. So one young researcher, I assume, asked this question. Citations rates vary across different fields. This particular person is talking about benchmarking. So she's saying that there are some, he or she, hopefully Sherry, the first name, but sometimes it could be male also too, don't know, don't want to assume, that's saying that her dean or his dean compares these rates to other. She's asking, are there any, you know, Marco, you're from stat marketing, Bing, you're from computer sciences, and Wallace, you're from tourism. Are there any, she's asking, benchmarks? What is a good citation number to compare if the dean is actually using that in some of the decisions? Do you know any things like you guys are 30 to 50,000 citations? Obviously, you are outliers. I mean, I have 4,000. I feel lucky compared to you, I'm a baby. But so what is your thoughts on that? Do you know anything like in computer science, Bing? Is there any rates that you know of, or the
not really. I mean, computer science, we do sometimes, I mean, do look at the different areas. Certain area, obviously, there are more researchers, and certain area, for example, systems, a certain area, they have less researchers. And they also spend time to build the systems. And also, they tend to have less papers, and also they tend to have sort of less sort of citations. So we do have some considering on that, but we have not really, I don't know anybody sort of actively doing, I think somebody should do some kind of normalization on this kind of thing. It's not quite comparable. You know, some of the things, you know, the area is big, and then also there are lots of people interested. Even you are not very good, you can get thousands of citations. It's not that difficult. But for some areas, you know, just now Marco said there's only about, you know, Dimitri said only about few hundred people which is interested in this particular area. No matter what you do, you can't get lots of citations. So I think something should be done to normalize this type of thing. But it's actually quite hard because everything is fluid, right? It's changing. You know, in this area, and tomorrow I'm in that area, you know. Because, for example, I saw at least in my area, natural language processing. So somebody from physics, and he was, he or she, I don't know, I remember, was interested in the natural language processing. And then she was ranked in natural language processing, ranked very highly. I mean, the number one or something like that, but nobody knows the person actually at all. It happens to be the person got lots of citation in the physics. So you see that, so it's interesting, sort of somebody has to study this and to do some kind of normalizations or some collaborations about this type of thing.
Yeah. Dimitros, Marco, do you have any ideas about this citation benchmarking figures for different disciplines?
I don't.
Marco, how about you?
Not really. I mean, the thing is, as I indicated before, it's just a proxy, and we tend to take it for real and for granted. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't free us from actually looking at the research. Yeah. I mean, the citation counts on Google, they're impressive examples how you can surpass Einstein with just a few hundred working papers, citing yourself all the time, and you get a massive citation count. Yeah. I mean, but therefore, any benchmarking is very difficult. I mean, if at all, you can look at the H index, I-10 index, but again, across disciplines, very difficult. Yeah.
Right. Okay. One, I assume again, young researcher is asking a question, saying that can citations be perceived, or high citations, as indicators for research trends? I assume that this person is asking this to pick the right topic. What is your thoughts on that? Anybody, please jump in.
Yeah, I mean, I can take that because yeah, at least in PLS, I can tell that's really happening. Yeah, I mean, obviously, you're always some steps behind, because once the citations roll in, I mean, the research that cited you is already a couple of years old, and they have read your stuff, so maybe you're actually a little bit behind, but then actually you know what is trending at the moment, and you can maybe envision what could be next. Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, I think that's one way of at least identifying some areas which are prospering. Yes.
Right. Bing, how about you? Do you have any idea?
I think the citation is sort of a delayed indicator. So you probably should look at the journals and the conferences, what kind of topics are that are being published at the moment. And I mean, also probably recently, but other than if you wait for citation, that probably, it's probably too late.
Right.
A lot of citations that really happen is probably too late.
Too late. Dimitrios, what do you think about this? Citations.
It takes time. It takes a long time to be established. It takes a long time to actually do the good work and to be discovered. And a lot of people are becoming really impatient. They really want, and I really feel for the young academics, because I see some of them, they're really so keen on Facebook, on Twitter, on wherever, saying, yeah, I got another citation. Yeah, I got another citation. It's kind of painful for them. And then they announce, yeah, we got 200 citations. Oh, my God, do some good research and don't worry about these things. They're going to come to you. Have a little bit of patience. Just take care not about your citability, but primarily the quality of your research. And it's a little bit sad that we're all chasing numbers, but it's really about the debate on TriNet is what we're showing. But it's really let's say some good ideas. Let's function in a global way. In my field, which in tourism, Mike Hall is the number one on citations, and he's really almost double mine. Then John Crompton, who's been around, he's retired. He's been around for a long time. And then myself and my good friend Rob Law from Hong Kong, we are very close, and we operate, we work together, we write together, and we're very, very close. But it's really not, you shouldn't really see that as a competition or something that, you have to achieve. It's really do the good work and the citations are coming. Because you are developing so much good energy and impact that people will take forward.
Yeah, I totally agree. But the thing with the good work is, I mean, we see, as you said, there are many papers that are excellent, but that never get cited. Yeah, so I think the part of the good work is also to sell your ideas. Yeah, so what we not only marketing them. Yeah, I mean, but the write up, the way you present summaries, for example, make it easy for the reader to understand the key learnings from your research articles. I mean, good journals, good editors look for these things. Yeah, but you as a researcher, you should also consider this. I mean, let me give you an example. I mean, I'm for methods. Yeah, so what we try to do at the end of papers is just give like a summary table that you can comprehend, even without having read like every statistical detail in the middle. It's like a convenient summary of the key takeaways. And at least from my subjective view, I mean, I never analyzed it, but my understanding is that those papers get cited quite heavily. Make it easy for the reader to follow. Yeah, so
to pick up abstract.
At least in my view, part of doing good work. Yeah, so that's probably what you meant. Yeah, but not being rigorous is not all of it. Yeah.
Marco, you're absolutely right. And now, as an editor, as the editor of Chief on Tourism Review, I'm returning what I've learned from my personal research strategy, and I'm helping my authors to turn around their papers, their titles, their research, and actually improve the quality of their paper and improve their impact to get out and get the right things.
Right.
And I think that's something that we really need to do for junior researchers or people who are starting now, helping them to engage at that kind of level so their work is discovered and their work is used.
Right. I have some great questions. We have about 12 minutes left in our panel. I want to just quickly answer one question because I know the answer. Somebody asked, do I have to get my publisher's permission to upload my paper in social media? The answer is that you should not upload this paper unless there is a free print. And also you can maybe abstract or the page is okay and link to the paper download, which also ties to every person.
You can upload in the British system. You can upload the last version before you send it to the publisher.
As a Word
in
document,
the university
right?
platforms. Yes.
Right. Yes.
And I think that's useful.
Yes. If it is an open access, which there is another question, somebody asking you, and I would like to ask you, if it is open access, you can do, of course, based on licensing. But here's the question. Zachariah is asking this question. How about open access or paid subscription model journals? Does it have any impact on citation? In other words, he's asking for those of papers who have published on open access, do you see those are cited more than the others? Anybody let's start with you. Do you have any idea?
I don't have any experience with that because because in computer science we don't sort of publish in journals as often as other areas. It was for us, it's normally the conferences, and the conferences are pretty much open sort of thing. Right. And although sometimes we say sometimes publisher or whatever people may say you should not upload your paper to somewhere, but everybody does it, so nobody cares about it. So, and of course now we have also, especially for AI and computer science, there's a big called archive, which is hosting a lot of papers. Of course now it's also hosting papers from everywhere. So but we have not done much on uploading there. We did something recently, and I don't know really what is the impact of that. Of course you want to get your idea early.
Right. Marco and Boris, how about you? Do you guys have any idea about open access articles that you publish get more citations than the others?
I think open access in open access journals, it's a new thing. And basically I've avoided, because the open access journals are not top tier, so there's no point in publishing them.
Yet.
So I'm trying to publish my work in high impact journals and also relevant journals.
Okay.
That's a huge debate. I guess because people are quite lazy, they'll be using open access material quite a lot, because let's face it, in many countries and many places, many universities, a lot of the expensive journals that belong to Elsevier or Emerald or Sage, they are not accessible. So they'll be quoting what they'll be finding. So there is a point that open access may be cited more in the future.
Yeah, Anehe is working very hard on its on open access journals. Hopefully, will be ESCI Scopus Index soon. Marco, how about you? Do you have any experience in open access versus? Do you have any papers published in open access journals?
Yeah, I have, but generally the open access journals, most of them are really not relevant for me personally. Yeah, because we try to publish in very high prestige journals, which are typically not open access. Yeah, but I'm not saying that all open access journals are junk. Yeah, I mean there's a bunch of journals that are high quality. PLOS ONE, for example, a multidisciplinary journal. It's excellent. It's at least for us excellent. Yeah. So, but what I can say is, if you somehow manage to get your paper open access, even in a regular journal, this typically boosts citations quite a lot. And I'm sitting on several editorial boards of journals, and every year when we have editorial board meetings, and you take a look at the citations and the top performing papers in terms of citations, and those in terms of downloads, there are always those that are open access, yeah, where authors or institutions bought like a license so that everyone can access them. But there's certainly also an interaction of some kind. I mean, obviously the paper's got to be good quality and relevant, having a broad appeal. Otherwise, the open access doesn't help you.
Journal of Global Business Insights, which is one of the journals that ANHE publishes, is open access. I agree with Dimitrios what he's saying, that downloads are amazingly fast. We got an issue published about 3 weeks ago. We already got 5,000 downloads, which is, again, for a young journal, it's quite good. A couple of 3 people actually asked a similar question. I would like to ask you this. Do you have any thoughts? Publishing in a specialist journal versus multidisciplinary journal. Are there any difference in terms of citation impact or impact it may generate? What are your thoughts about that?
Specialist or generic is the question.
Specialist journal, I guess generic, or multidisciplinary journals.
Yeah.
I mean, I may jump in.
Yeah,
so for computer science, there are some fairly general conferences. And over the year, for example, in the area of artificial intelligence, there are 2, probably more, 2 prestigious conferences which are basically covering every area of computer science. Every area of this AI. And however, in the past 10, 15 years, lots of specialized conferences come out from that big conference. And for example, data mining, machine learning, and natural language processing, they used to be together. You should publish in your special area, because in that area you tend to have more people interested in saying. You don't know anybody, because they're all over the covers all over the spectrum, and then people from all over the places. And then when you go to the specialized conferences, then you sort of this bunch of guys are doing this, and we're all somewhat related, and then it's easier to communicate and easy to know what is going on, to get some stimulations, things like that.
Right. Anything else in this question, multidisciplinary versus specialist journals?
I think people who get a lot of citations, they write a lot as well. And I think, you've got a range of papers. So you may write some papers on a specialist area, some papers on multidisciplinary wider areas. And then you use those ones to signpost to the other papers that you've done on specialist journals. If you write two papers per year, you're not going to be really super cited. You need a volume. Mike Hall is probably the most prolific author in tourism. That's why he's number 1 on the number of citations. And what you do quite often is you say, I'm dealing with that in the generic journal here, but I'm dealing with that on this small specific journal there, and you just move around.
Right. Marco, how about
there's a volume of papers.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I can see the argument that it's better to publish in specialized conference or go to specialized conferences and also publish in specialized journals, because the audience you're communicating to knows what's going on. Yeah, I got that. But on the other hand, I think you kind of get a bit blind for what's going on outside your field if you just stick to this specific field. I mean, there's just some fields that are very, very nurturing itself, and it's just the type of research is so marginal and not really, it's creating an impact for the field as such, but not like beyond the fields. And so I think it's important at some point to at least try to move out of your field and appeal to management in general or marketing in general. Like, I mean, for everyone working in tourism or hospitality, I think the aim should be to publish in management science at some point. This would at least be my goal of my research. I haven't managed to do that, yeah. But if you can manage to speak to like such a broad audience, then actually that is also a sign of. I think that everything that's published in specialized journals is not relevant, but if you can move out of the field, it's actually an option. Yeah.
We have about 2 minutes left. I assume that we are all bilinguals here, right? Marco, you speak and write in German. And
Yes.
well, did you publish in Greek language?
Not really.
How about you, Bing? Did you publish in another language?
No,
I assume.
no, only English. Only
Okay.
English.
So here's the question. One person is asking, is citation numbers being fair to non-English speaking researchers who are doing excellent work in their native language? What are your thoughts about that?
Well, I'm a non-English speaker who became English speaker because if I want to communicate, I had to kind of not to write in Greek and write in English. Everybody can write in languages that they feel that they've got access, and I think that's critical. Now, if someone is starting their career, they may like to work with more established people who have been working in different languages and take the language barrier down. But it's inevitable. I mean, the important question is really the other language that will be prevailing is Chinese, and I think citations in Chinese, and I'm sure that in China there may be similar kind of systems where they measure productivity that may have an impact.
Right. Marco, how about you? Have you ever published in German?
Oh yeah, a tiny bit, but I'm not a particular fan because I think if you really take research like serious, then you need to appeal to a broad audience, and like the broad audience does not speak German. Yeah, so
Right.
I think that's just
So the language of academic research is English, right? So either like it
Yeah.
or not like it, it is a fact.
yeah, and
Not the research. You do the language on whatever research, but publications can be published. You know, they are published in English, but they can be published in other outlets as well. But if you really want to have global access, it's primarily English.
That's one last question. I think it's important. Marco, are you an editor of a journal?
not a regular editor, no, but special issue editor and area editor.
Okay. How about you, Bing? Are you editor of any journal?
I'm not a chief sort of editor. I'm not a chief, but I mean editor, sort of action editor or associate editor for many journals. Yes.
Okay. Wonderful. Here's a question, and Dimitrios, I know you are. Somebody said that journals and journal reviews seems to be publishing us to cite other articles from the journal we are submitting, or the editor's own research in order to get through the review process. What are your thoughts? Do you observe that? I mean, obviously, you are not doing it, but do you see that the young researchers are being requested like silently, hiddenly to do that?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that? Yeah.
I know journal does that. I know one or two journal does that. Yeah.
And you don't support it, right? Obviously.
No, definitely. Definitely not. I don't support that. Yeah.
Marco,
I think most of the editors are under pressure to increase the citations of their journals. And I think one way or another, this is happening. In terms of review, what we say is that you really need to engage with the journal and the style of the journal and the areas that we are dealing with. And in that sense, I would be surprised if I get a manuscript that has never engaged with anything on tourism review. So in that sense, we encourage it, but it's not a requirement.
Right. Marco, how about you? In your guest special issue, do you like people when they cite your papers? Do you want them, or do you ask them to do it?
No, I mean we don't ask them, but obviously we're probably some, like Christian Ringler and I, we're probably among the most highly cited researchers in PLS. it's a bit odd if you submit something to a special issue that we are editing and you don't cite us at all. And I'm not saying this is like attacking my ego, but it's just not doesn't seem to show an overview of the relevant literature. But like we just edited a special issue of Internet Research. There's a bunch of papers that we accepted that cite us like once or so. I mean, that's perfectly okay, yeah? So not a problem. If it's not relevant, our research to the papers, then don't cite it, yeah, sure. But I think it's smarter to at least look for the journal and try to cite the journal, because if you don't tie in with the discussion in the journal, then that's probably more difficult to convince the reviewers and the AE and the editor that the paper is a good fit.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, dear panelists. I thank you for taking the time. And this is an issue. I have still more questions, but we promised you we're going to take you only 1 hour. I appreciate your time. In closing, while we are going around, any quick advice to young researchers that you did not cover already, if any? Otherwise, say goodbye and then we'll close it up.
I think you should research things that you really are passionate about, that you really care for, and you should research on things that you should make an impact to society. And don't worry about citations and things like that. They'll come if the research is good and there's an impact and people use your research. So be passionate about your area.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah. Just
anything else from you? Any other advice?
Just adding 2 words: have fun.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
And also, if you search on the internet, there's lots of links to basically give you tips how to get high citations. You should read that too. Okay.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Perfect. Thank you again. Have a nice night, evening, day. I appreciate you. Hope to see you somewhere. Yep. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thanks, Fabio. Thanks. Bye.
Thanks to all of you who join on live on Facebook and also in Zoom.
Okay, so these are some of the tricks that I use. However, I would really appreciate if you can comment down below and tell me what are some of the tricks to apply in your research in order to get more citations or more visibility for your research. If you do not agree to any of these points, please comment down below and I'll be very happy to engage with you about that point in an active conversation. That's the whole point behind this channel, so that we can have active conversations around different issues related to research. Thank you.